Hello and welcome to the class. My name's Daniel, and today we're going to be looking at line graphs and graphs when you have two sets of data. This is for the academic writing task 1. If you have any questions after the class, go to the top of the page and click on the chat icon to send us a message. So this is the first of 2 classes and it will last just over 20 minutes. First, we're going to look at some vocabulary use for describing change over time, and then we'll focus on some grammatical structures that you can also use for this. So by the end of the class, you should be more familiar of what grammar and vocabulary you need to describe change over time. During the class, there'll be questions for you to answer. You can see these below the screen. I'll tell you when you need to answer them, and I'll give you about 10 to 15 seconds to answer each one. So let's get started. So we're talking about changes over time, but why is it important to be able to talk about changes over time? Well, it's really important for task 1. The majority of task 1 questions will require it. The only ones that probably don't are maps and processes. So you often get line graphs, bar charts, pie charts, and tables. And in these, they can often show change over time. So a value changing over time. Let's have a look at some here. For example, we've got this line graph here. And you can see it's got the different dates at the bottom here. So it starts with 2012 and it goes to 2019. Now this data changes over time, and we need to be able to describe this change. The same as well with bar charts. Again, data can be represented in bar charts, which can also have dates. So here you can see 2012 and again here 2019. Again, we'll need to say, how does that change? So we'll need vocabulary for that. Pie charts can also show change over time. If one of them shows one date and another shows another date, that will show change over time. So things might go up and go down in that situation. And again, for tables, tables are another way of representing data, and they can have 2 separate dates. Here it has the date 2000, and here it has 2030. So again, there'll be a change, and you need to be able to describe that change. So how do we talk about it? Well, there's some specific vocabulary that you can use, and we're going to see that in a coming slide. Also, there are some grammatical structures that you can use, just so you're practicing using different vocabulary in different grammatical structures. So we'll look at them in a moment as well. So let's start with some vocabulary for talking about change over time. Well, the key things really are what changes can happen. That's what we need to know. And there's basically 4 changes. It's quite simple. Things can go up, which will be represented by this. The data on the number can go down. That's another thing that can happen, right? Which will represent as this. Things can stay the same. So when there's no change at all. Things can go up and down. So we're going to use this to show that. So it's going up and down like that in the chart. And then we can also talk about big or fast changes, which we'll represent with this arrow. And you can have small or slow changes as well, like this. Basically, that's everything. That's all that the data can do. There's no other options, really. So if you have different vocabulary for all of these different things, you'll be able to describe the data and the charts and graphs and the tables more accurately. So let's look at some different synonyms for those different changes. We'll start with go up. Well, some different ways to say go up is increase and an increase. Here, it's important to note that here increase is a verb and an increase is a noun. Most verbs have a noun as well that you can use. They will be used in different grammatical structures, but we'll look at that in a moment. Other ones, rise is a verb and arise would be a noun. This means the same as go up. You could say grow and a growth is the noun. Again, just means go up. And rocket is the verb. And rocket is a little bit different in that it means go up very quickly. Let's look at ones for go down. Opposite of increase, we've got decrease. And again, we've got a verb and a decrease is the noun of that. Fall and a fall. Drop and a drop is the noun. Plummet, which is the opposite of rocket. So remember, rocket means go up very quickly. Plummet means go down very quickly. And another good one is plunge, also means go down very quickly. Now we'll look at ones for when something stays the same. Well, there's only a few here, but you could say remain the same. That is a verb phrase, okay? The verb here is remain. Remain the same, doesn't change. And you could also use remain stable. Again, we're using the verb remain here. Then, as we said, there's go up and go down, which we would say fluctuate would be the key verb here, or a fluctuation. Then we also mentioned that you can have big changes. So a big change, you could say a dramatic change. Now here we've got adjectives. Dramatic is an adjective. And then we've got dramatically. You can see that it's got ly. That means this is an adverb. Again, like the verbs and nouns, they will go in different grammatical structures, which we'll see in a moment. So we've got dramatic and dramatically. They both mean a big change or a fast change. Considerable and considerably, again, talking about a big change. Significant and significantly. Substantial and substantially. And sharp and sharply. A little bit of difference here is that sharp and sharply doesn't necessarily mean a large amount, but it means quick. It means it changes very quickly. And then we can talk about small or slow changes. So we could say slight, a little change, or slightly. We could say steady, which doesn't really mean little, but it means slowly. It changes slowly. So steady and steadily. And then we've got gradual and gradually, which is the same as steady and steadily. So it means it changes very slowly. So how do we use this vocabulary? Well, there are two common grammatical structures that you can use. There are more than that, but this is a good starting point, really. The first one is this. There was a plus an adjective, plus a noun, plus the preposition in, plus the subject. Now, the subject is whatever the graph is talking about. So if the graph is talking about the number of drivers, then the subject would be the number of drivers. If the graph is talking about the amount of oil in a country, then the subject would be the amount of oil in a country. And we'll see here, it's important to notice that we've got adjective and noun. So when we looked at that vocabulary before, we could take the adjective from there, put it in here, and take the noun and put that in there to describe it, okay? The second structure is this. Subject, that's the same subject, so the number of drivers, the amount of oil, plus a verb, plus an adverb. Now, this is really important to see that the verb and the adverb are together, like the adjective and the noun are together. It's pretty much impossible for the verb and the noun to go together, or the verb and the adjective to go together, okay? They don't work together, okay? The verb and the adjective, they just don't go together. The same with an adverb and a noun, they don't go together either, okay? So it's always the adjective with the noun together, or the verb with the adverb. They go together as well. So that's important to remember. Now let's take a look at an example graph. So we can see here, this is talking about people traveling to work and different ways for them to travel to work. So you've got the red line is walking, cycling, and driving. Let's see, driving goes down. Walking and cycling both go up. Now we're going to have a little bit of practice with these structures. To have a look at question 1 in the activity below the video. And I want you to answer which of these 5 sentences are grammatically correct. There was a gradually increase in walking. Traveling by car fell dramatically. There was a slight rise, cycling. Driving was a sharp drop in traveling to work. And traveling on foot, a rise significantly. So I'd like you to look at those for a moment and see if you can choose which ones are grammatically correct. Okay, so let's look at them together. We're going to go through each one before I give you the answer. Well, this first one, is this grammatically correct? There was a gradually increase in walking. No, it's not. Let's look why. Well, it has a increase. A increase is a noun, okay? And as we saw here, we've got there was a plus a noun. So in the middle, we need an adjective, and gradually has ly. So gradually is not an adjective, it's an adverb. And like I said before, an adverb and a noun together doesn't work. So if we wanted to make this sentence correct, we would have to say there was a gradual increase in walking. So without ly. So that one's not correct. Number 2, traveling by car fell dramatically. So the subject here is traveling by car. So we've got the subject. Fell is a verb. We said here a verb, and dramatically it has ly. So it's an adverb. So subject, verb, adverb is correct. It's this one here. It's B. So yes, that one's fine. Let's look at number 3. There was a slight rise cycling. Okay, well, it's this first pattern, A. There was a, fine. Slight is an adjective, so that's correct. Rise is a noun. Okay, we've got a rise. And then cycling is the subject. But we are missing something here. We're missing this in. You need this in, or it doesn't make sense. It's not grammatically correct without it. So with this structure, with adjective noun, we always need to put in. So that one's not correct. Number 4. Driving was a sharp drop in traveling to work. Well, this is a little bit confusing because we've got driving was a. We've got this was a from here, was a. And instead of there, we've put the word driving. And we've got a subject here. So traveling to work and driving, there's 2 subjects in this sentence, which is not correct. We don't want the word driving here. We want the word there. There was a. Sharp is an adjective, so that's correct. Sharp. And drop is a noun, so that bit's fine. And then we've got in, so that bit's okay. But this word here, driving, it needs to be the word there. So this is not correct, this sentence. And number 5. Oops. Traveling on foot arise significantly. Well, the subject here, we've got traveling on foot is at the beginning. So that's the subject of the sentence. Arise. Rise. Well, rise is a verb, but arise is a noun. So this is not correct because we need, after the subject, we need a verb here. We've got an adverb at the end, significantly. It's got ly, so that's correct, that bit. But arise here is not correct. If we want to make that sentence correct, we'd have to say traveling on foot rose significantly. So we'd have to change arise to a verb. So there was just one correct answer there. That was number 2. Okay, so now let's have a little look at describing change more specifically. Well, we just spoke about increase, decrease, dramatically, significantly. That's describing the change, but it's not very specific. And when we're writing an academic writing task 1, we need to try to be quite specific about how it changes. So just saying people traveling to work by car increase dramatically is not enough. It's too general. So how can we be more specific? So the first thing we can do is to use data from the graph. So numbers and amounts, percentages, that kind of thing. Another thing we want to do is use dates. As we looked at before, the change over time, it will always have dates in there. So you need to say, when did the change start and when did the change finish? And also mention how much did it change by. We can also have more accurate subjects. So just using the word cars as a subject, it's a bit too simple. We'd maybe want to say the number of people driving to work instead of cars. Okay, that's a more specific subject. So let's have a bit of practice. What we're going to have a look at this is referring to this chart again. And I'd like you to look at question 2 in the activity below the video and choose which of these is more specific. So we got between 2015 and 2017, the number of people driving to work fell dramatically. Traveling by car fell dramatically. Between 2015 and 2017, the number of people taking cars to work fell dramatically from around 750 people to just above 400 people. So I'll give you a moment to try to answer that. Okay, so let's have a look again at each one. Well, this first one, it says between 2015 and 2017. So it uses dates. Excellent, that's good. We need to have dates. The number of people driving to work is also a specific subject as well. The problem here is that it doesn't give any data. So that was what we said here in bullet point 1, is we need to use data from the graph. Here there is no data. How much did it change by? We want to know. So that's quite specific, but is it the most specific? We'll see. Well, number 2, you can see here is very short. There's a very short sentence, so probably it's not very specific. Traveling by car is, as I mentioned before, a bit of a general subject. This subject here, the number of people driving to work, that is much more specific because it tells you exactly what the graph is looking at. Traveling by car, it's not specific enough. Also, there are no dates and there is no data here. So this is the least specific. Now, number 3, we can see it says between 2015 and 2017. So we've got the dates we spoke about. The number of people taking cars to work. So that's the subject, and that's a very specific subject, so that's great. Fell dramatically from around 750 people to just above 400 people. So it's used data from the chart, which is fantastic. That's exactly what we wanted. And we can have a little look at that here, 750 to just over 400. Let's see what it's referring to. So we're talking about number of people driving to work. In 2015, you can see here it's at 750 people, to 2017 for just over 400. So it's describing this part here, and it's describing it very specifically. It's using numbers from here, and it's using dates from here, and it's taking this, and it's putting it all into one sentence. Now, that is exactly what you want to be doing. Another thing that's really important here to look at is words like around and just above. Because this is nice to be if you're not sure what exactly the number is, but it's about that. So again, it's just making it more specific again. Okay, so remember that if you have any questions, you can go to the top of the screen and click on this chat icon to send us a message. Well, that's the end of the class. Thank you very much for coming. Now it's important to take class 2 on this topic and do the extra training and practice activities. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you again.